finally, back to another episode of Revved Up, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Carter Leonard, back after a 2 week hiatus. Yes, we've been watching every single week. We're up to date on what's been going on, and of course, we have a lot to talk about on this week's episode, mainly revolving around Chicagoland Speedway and this weekend's action at both Atlanta Motor Speedway. Yes, I am still calling it Atlanta Motor Speedway. It will never be called Echo Park Speedway in my lifetime. It'll just be called Atlanta. Like how people back in the day used to call Charlotte Motor Speedway still Charlotte, even when it was titled Lowe's Motor Speedway. So there you have it with that. And also we have Lime Rock Park action this weekend, road course racing for the truck series. We'll talk a little bit about that later on today's episode. Special shout out to Sepultura for their song Dead Embryonic Cells on the intro this weekend. So I think we're probably going to be a little bit more diverse with the music as time goes along here. Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the um the group chat here. One of the group chats that I'm in for racing. But yeah. So we apologize for the lack of episodes as of late. We are aware of what happened to both San Diego and Sonoma. Corey Heim at San Diego wins his first ever Cup Series race in just his 13th start. And Shane Van Gisbergen absolutely dominating the road at Sonoma. Even though Chase Briscoe got close to winning that race, but SVG was still ruler of the road courses. But this week, however, Chase Briscoe would not be denied. He would actually be the successor while his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate fell short just behind him. Chase Briscoe wins at Chicagoland Speedway, his first win of the 2026 season, 6th overall career Cup Series win, and the 4th time that he has won in the 19 Toyota Camry for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is just his 2nd year with the team. I'm really happy for Chase Briscoe. I feel like that win, his first win of the year, was just coming right around the corner. Won 3 races last year, but then kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start to begin the year. You kind of actually saw the opposite ends of the spectrum when it came to JGR cars, where it was Chase Briscoe struggling a little bit while Ty Gibbs was able to get off to a hot start and do what he's been doing pretty much all year long. But I knew without a shadow of a doubt, Chase Briscoe did not forget how to drive a race car. He did not forget how to drive a race car. He didn't forget how to, wheel the thing, but you kind of saw the other Toyota drivers like a Denny Hamlin or Tyler Reddick really take the reins, while Briscoe was, it's not to say that Briscoe has been having a completely terrible year, but like some teams, for whatever reason, get off to slow starts. And that was kind of my worry going into last year when Chase Briscoe signed with Joe Gibbs Racing. Was having a slow start to the year, but then gradually picking it up as time goes along, which he ultimately did. He won after a late race battle with his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate Chris Rebel, who's still recovering from that fractured wrist after a wreck that he suffered at Michigan. Bell, technically speaking, Bell has still competed in every single race. Back at San Diego, he couldn't complete every bit of the race because of the shifting and stuff like that, so they had to put young Joe Gibbs Racing prospect Brent Cruz into the seat, which that was a terrible day for him. Cruz was not used to the 5-speed sequential shifter, which I don't blame him. He's never stepped foot in this car before, so you really couldn't expect much out of him, but that's besides the point. But Christopher Bell, that is his 4th runner-up finish of the year, still looking for his first win of the 2026 season. He won 4 races last year, currently sits 10th in points, but the day belonged to Chase Briscoe, winning in that beautiful, patriotic Bass Pro Shop scheme. But not only was Briscoe the winner of this race had a lot going on. So first things first, I want to discuss TNT's broadcast real quick. Of course, we're now in the TNT stretch of the year. They're scheduled after Prime's 5 races. They have their 5 races of the summer. And this is race number 2. Race number 1, of course, took place for them at Sonoma, and the broadcast was meh. It was passable. I think it was a lot better than Fox, but you could see that the room for improvement was still there. Marty Smith, legendary reporter for ESPN and other sports ventures out there, now holds the reins of the TNT pre-race show. So he's at the head of the desk now and basically taking charge in that regard, which is honestly really cool to see. I've always admired Marty Smith. He's been one of my favorite reporters in the sports journalism landscape for quite some time now, and it's always cool to see him involved in the sport that really. I mean, did he really? I don't know how exactly Marty got his career kick started, but that's besides the point. But Sonoma's broadcast was meh, but literally the week after, we saw an uptick in performance, if you will, a little bit of an increase in quality when it came to the overall presentation of the broadcast. First things first, I think them updating the graphics for like the overall scoring pylon that you would see on the side of your TV, I think looks better. They added color next to the names. I'm still not a fan of how small the numbers are. Shout out to NASCAR Tyler on both Twitter and Instagram. He made a video, aka the paint scheme review guy that we love seeing every single week, or the promo trend guy, as he was known earlier in the year. Talked about how, obviously, speaking for me, I have good eyesight. A guy like him, on the other hand, and I don't mean to throw him under the bus or anything like that or insult him. People like him don't have that same sort of eyesight. He does wear glasses, and you kind of have to squint a little bit. And I'm not going to lie, even though I have good eyesight, I have to squint every now and then when it comes to the races on TNT. Like, I'm not going to lie. That's been one of the big things that I don't like. But I think overall, the way they treat the races is still very, very professional. I don't know. I just something about the Chicagoland broadcast, which, by the way, TNT's broadcast of the Euro 400 got 2.1 million viewers on Sunday, which is right around normally how it would be. I know you could get TNT through streaming, but is TNT primarily a cable channel? I don't know. Somebody would have to remind me on that. But yeah, overall, I thought the TNT broadcast, the week after Sonoma, it felt like there was a lot more character involved with it. I love the pre-race stuff. I love the post-race stuff that they deal with, like all the post-race interviews. Hearing from every driver before or after the race, as many interviews as you possibly can, gives character to a broadcast, and I think a lot of people have to acknowledge and realize that, and I think that's a really good thing. Amazon Prime, I think, Prime Video, I think they hold the standard for that. They hold the Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I had to pause real quick. Dinner was ready for me, and no, I'm not currently eating right now, but you get the idea of it. But I have, dinner's prepared. So, anyways, back to what I was saying. Overall, the TNT broadcast felt like there was a lot more character to it this time around. Not to say the Sonoma broadcast was like cloudy or anything. Like, that's the way that I like to describe things, is like when it's kind of just like dull or boring. I always say cloudy, because when you think about it, that's honestly the correct terminology for it. But so yeah, that's one thing I wanted to discuss first. To the overall race, and by the way, we'll get to the O'Reilly Series race in a little bit, because that also had some uniqueness to it. First things first, happy late 4th of July, I guess, to everybody out there. We celebrate America's 250th birthday this year, which is mind-boggling to think about. I mean, none of us were alive 250 years ago. Sorry, I wanted to put that thought in everybody's head. But, so, Toyotas were going to be dominant this race. I mean, they have just dominated on the mile and a half. Even for a track that we had not been to in like 7 years, we were able to, get that, we were able to see that Toyota, domination again. But it came from, you kind of thought to yourself, because I picked Denny Hamlin to win this race, and it wasn't a bad pick in hindsight. I mean, he still had a good day, but just not enough to where he could really get up there and go for the win. Um, you know, 7 Toyotas finished us at the top 10. So I'm going to read off the top 10 list here, the finishing order of the Euro 400. Oh, well, that's not what I wanted. So, of course, Chase Briscoe was able to get the win. Christopher Bell comes home second. Um, Denny Hamlin third. So my pick got inside the top three. There, it wasn't just also Toyotas too. There was two Chevrolets, mainly from Hendrick Motorsports. In particular, William Byron, who had a good points day. He maximized in stage points. He earned 20 stage points by sweeping both stage 1 and stage 2, and came home with a fourth place finish. So a nice run for the 24 team. Alex Bowman, what a job this team is trying to do, get out of the cellar that they've had earlier in the year. Alex Bowman rounds at the top 5. But let's go through the Toyotas. So you have Briscoe, Bell, and Hamlin all through the top 3. Bubba Wallace in 6th. Ty Gibbs in 8th. Corey Hyman 9th. And Riley Herbst in 10th. I believe I saw a stat earlier in the week that this was the very first time that Toyota, as a NASCAR manufacturer, since their inaugural season back in 2007 in the Cup Series, this is the first time that they've ever done something like this. You know, say what you want about the idea of, oh, Toyota's cheating, they have an unfair advantage, the court ruling from the lawsuit did something like this. It's like, dude, when are we gonna come to the realization that manufacturer dominance in a normal year is extremely common? Like, we get these fans get up in arms about how Toyota is really dominating the Cup Series, which personally, I don't have a problem with it. I like seeing the other Chevy and Ford teams shine from time to time, and who knows, we might get a Chevy or Ford winner this weekend when we go to Atlanta. But I love how we don't say a peep about Chevy dominating the O'Reilly Series, which that's different. Because there's a every team. It feels like every team except for like a couple down there, like Joe Gibbs Racing, for instance, runs Chevrolets. Like, that doesn't get boring to you guys? And darn cheating Toyotas, I guess. I don't know. But there was also a couple of noteworthy incidents, mainly some driver clashes, so to speak. Let's start off with the earlier one that began in stage 1, and this revolves around the 38 car of Zane Smith for Front Row Motorsports. Now, going into turns 1 and 2, now the caution came out, and it showed Zane Smith, as the camera pointed towards the car. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, Zane Smith probably spun out in turns 1 and 2. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Then you look at the replay, and it shows Zane Smith and one other yellow car in the picture as well that's in front of him, that being the 77 of Carson Hocevar. He gets into the back of the 77, and they both slide up the racetrack, and Hocevar had some right rear, left rear damage. Basically kind of affected his night for the rest of the time being. But I'm not sure what exactly was the the incident that began all this. I don't know if Hocevar got into Zane or something like that. Maybe a little door slam, maybe a little bumper action. I'm not sure exactly what exactly. Not sure exactly what exactly. I'm not sure exactly what was the Kickstarter to this whole ordeal. But one thing is for certain, and say what you want, because I saw some fans on social media say that this quote gets tiring, but honestly, you could say it gets tiring, But when more and more people do this, it's still the truth. What is the number one rule in stock car racing? Learn how to wreck somebody without wrecking yourself. And this incident right here is absolutely 100% no different. And what makes matters even interesting is that Zane Smith went on, him and Riley Herbst went on the Boys podcast. Now, if you're not familiar with the Boys podcast, they are like a sports, like kind of sports-esque podcast. Taylor Lewan, a former offensive lineman in the NFL and the University of Michigan. I had to say that to kind of shout out Adam, basically. He's a big Wolverines fan for anybody who doesn't know. And then you have the co-host. I always forget the co-host name. But anyway, Zane Smith was talking smack about, not necessarily about, well, obviously Hocevar. I mean, both him and Herbst were talking smack about Hocevar, but they also made fun of the Hocevar fans. Zane Smith went even as far as to make a comparison saying that, you know, the picture of the guy with the glasses from South Park that's sitting at his computer all the time? Yeah, those are Carson Hocevar fans. That wasn't the exact quote, but that's something that he did point out. That's something that he did allude to, which honestly, I don't care what side you're on. I think this whole ordeal is funny. I think it brings a lot of laughter. I think it brings a lot of giggles, you know, but that's just what I think. But I will say this, you know, I want to say I get tired of talking about the Hocevar incident and stuff like that. But this time, I don't need to talk about Hocevar. It's more so about Zane Smith. It's like, well, I mean, you got your point across, but at the end of the day, you costed yourself, basically. And I was looking back at the finishing results of this race because I knew we were going to talk about this incident on the podcast. When we look at the finishing running order, Carson Hocevar finished 22nd, Zane Smith 28th. Obviously, not the greatest finishes from either driver, but at the end of the day, who had the last laugh? I can tell you who did. It was the person that finished 6 spots better than the guy who really started this whole thing. But that wasn't the only incident on that late Sunday afternoon. Oh, no, good buddy. Oh, no. Far from it. 2 other drivers that are well known in the field, both good and bad. I'll let you decide on who's on the good side of things and who's on the bad side of things. Shane Van Gisbergen, the 97 car for Team Trackhouse and the 33 car of Austin Hill for Richard Childress Racing, got into it in turns 3 and 4 with SVG making contact with Austin Hill and sending Hill up the racetrack and into the outside wall with a lot of right rear damage, basically hindering the 33 car's night. This was early on in stage 2 with Austin Hill's crew chief. I believe it was I don't know who's the spotter for Austin Hill. He was with the late great Kyle Busch. Derek Nealon. It was either Derek Nealon or Austin Hill on the radio. I forget which one, but they mentioned this was probably the funniest one of either both this and the Hocevar and Smith incident. He goes on the radio and he says, Van Guggenheimer or whatever his name is. You know, I just find it funny that we are in the third or fourth straight year that SVG has had some presence in the NASCAR world, and we still don't know how to pronounce his name. Either he genuinely does not know how to pronounce it, or he was genuinely trying to be offensive. Honestly, you can go either way. Because if you ask me, and RCR fans, you could be mad, you guys really lack in the intelligence department. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's either one. So, you know, Austin Hill said after the race, it's unfortunate to wreck race cars like we've done and end up destroyed like we are, but that's the hand we've been dealt. And Hill also said, I truly hope that NASCAR's handles it and does what they need to do, and hopefully I don't have to step in and handle it myself. Which, Austin Hill, I think your criteria of handling it yourself is right hooking someone, which you did, which, dang, that was almost a year ago already, but time is a whole other thing. SVG said that he would go to talk to Hill about it, but he would probably just get grunts instead of actual words. So, honestly, I'm glad, and it's hardly, and by the way, this is not the first time that Shane Van Gisbergen and Austin Hill have had some beef with each other. If you remember SVG's full-time year in the then called Xfinity Series in 2024 when he was driving for Colleague, like, Circuit of the Americas, like, they were beating and banging with each other that day. I mean, they were not fans of each other. When SVG won the Sonoma race that year, he literally did a burnout in front of Hill just to say, "Oh man, it just feels so good right now to be in front of you. Ooh, you can't catch this. You can't touch me. You ain't got nothing on me." So this is not the first time that these two have not been fans of each other. I can say that for certain. But if you ask me who I side with, I'm gonna side with Shane here. Let's be real. Austin Hill, and I understand why he's in the 33 car. We all understand the circumstances that we have been dealt with when it comes to him being in this car. This man, and I knew he was not going to set the world on fire. I knew he was not going to make the biggest difference in regards to performance. But there is nothing right now. There is nothing, unless something absolutely dramatic happens, which I highly doubt. There is not enough evidence for me to go out and say that Austin Hill, moving forward, would be a great fit in the Cup Series. A Rally Series, yeah, he's won 16 times down there. It might even be 17 by the time this weekend's all said and done. But, like, there is nothing with Austin Hill that makes you go, oh, he's going to be a superstar in Cup. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. He has been a heat-seeking missile almost every race. He caused an incident at Pocono, which coincidentally involved the 97 car. We've had numerous talks about Austin Hill on this podcast. We've had numerous discussions about how this dude is almost like a danger out on the racetrack. That, oh, he's got this blue collar mentality and he's just driving for RCR and he can do no wrong. Hell no, we're a blue collar team. That mentality can only get you so far. And if you couldn't tell, I was trying to do my best Richard Childress impersonation. I know it's terrible. I should stick to what I'm good at rather than what I'm not. So, but it was then but then NASCAR revealed that there'd be no points penalties for either both the Hocevar and Smith incident and the Hill and SVG incident, which caused a lot of raised eyebrows considering the fact that we had something similar to this at another mile-and-a-half track earlier in the year, where we had the Ty Gibbs, Ryan Preece incident. Preece literally announced on the radio that he was going to get the 54 back, which he ultimately did. He got fined about, $50,000 or something like that, or like $25,000. It was 25 driver's points, I believe $25,000 that he was fined. Then you had literally in that exact same race, you had the John Hunter Nemechek and Kyle Busch incident, which that looked like it was an intentional wreck by Busch, but he didn't end up getting fined. So, I guess the way I'm looking at it now is, while right hooks are still a big no-no, and turning people into the field is a big no-no, I guess there is this gray area now where as long as you don't announce your intentions over the radio, we'll all be fine and dandy. We'll all be good, and we'll all be, sunshine and rainbows. Well, at least for the teams. I can't speak on the drivers towards each other, but you can hear that from me. But yeah, so Chicagoland was definitely a weekend. There's more that I want to indeed talk about. Obviously, you had the Rally Series race on July 4th, which kind of ended on Sunday morning as well. It went well past midnight. But then again, there was a bunch of rainstorms that plummeted through the entire weekend. So yeah, it's like we never left because the last time we were at Chicagoland, we had a big rainstorm during the Cup race. So yeah, I guess some things never do change. But we were able to get so the O'Reilly Series race ended up starting later than it should. The Cup Series race began around like 5:30, 6 p.m. It was going to end under the lights, so you had that. But the O'Reilly Series race took place during the night, and Brandon Jones picks up his first win of the season for Joe Gibbs Racing. I believe that's his 8th career win. He can get it done on mile and a half tracks. Not only Kansas, he can do it at Chicagoland as well. So I guess that's something to be happy about if you're a Brandon Jones fan, if they even do exist. But he also had to hold off one of the Cup Series best in Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott, who was in the 88 for Junior Motorsports this week, made his first O'Reilly Series start of the year. And he even there was even a point in the CW broadcast where talked about how he said, hey, I'm going to ask Mr. H or, Dale Jr. if I can get more starts because he loves racing these cars. And I don't blame him. Former series champion back in 2014 with JRMs. So, I mean, there's anybody out there that really likes driving these cars, or at least one of these drivers, it's definitely Chase Elliott. And it can be said for a lot of other drivers as well. Dang, it's crazy when your second-tier series product is considered to be better than what you're supposed to be bringing on Sundays. I'm trying not to be anti here. I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to be positive, but it's just, man, it gets infuriating from time to time. It gets infuriating. So there you go. But I thought the O'Reilly Series race was definitely fun to watch. There was definitely a lot of good battles. I think I think the overtime finish, which I still believe get rid of overtimes, I thought was really, really fun to watch. The obviously in the surrounding Joliet, Illinois area, you had people lighting off fireworks and stuff like that, which kind of made the track a little bit foggy. Not so much foggy from when we went to Charlotte earlier in the year with that whole like monsoonish thing, but to where it was just enough that where it was really noticeable, and you're just like, wow, it's got this cool aura to it. You definitely you like seeing that. I like seeing stuff like that when it doesn't affect the overall product or doesn't stop us from racing. But yeah, the O'Reilly Series race was fun overall. Chicagoland, even though I wanted to go to the Chicagoland this year, I was not able to do that. Hopefully next year, maybe. Who knows? This was truly a really, really good weekend. Even though there were some parking issues, not so much as a Kentucky 2011 incident, but there was definitely a lot of parking issues, and hopefully they can remedy that issue. If they could do it for when Nashville Super Speedway, after their inaugural race, which I was there for that one, and that parking situation was a logistical nightmare. Hard to believe that was 5 years ago already. If they could figure that out, then they can definitely figure out Chicagoland's. And it was a sold out crowd as well. That was a big worry going into this weekend, is that we took the Chicago street race off the schedule after its 3-year stint, after its 3-year deal, and we brought back Chicagoland because we wanted to stay in that area. That's something that Ben Kennedy really, really stressed about, is how they want to be in that area and how they want people to come to the races. When it was announced, they said, all right, well, you guys got to come. And it was a sold-out crowd. And I think it really delivered on that. I think racing on the mile and a half for the Cup cars could be better. I don't like the dirty air. I'll give Chase Briscoe all the credit in the world. He did what he needed to do to win. but the dirty air is just painstakingly stupid. Because let's not forget, Christopher Bell was chasing down Briscoe. No dirty air, that 20 gets around him. But I can't blame Briscoe for taking advantage of something that's so silly that he's benefited off of it. I can't blame him. Not to say that I don't think Briscoe's talented. It's just, it's hard to ignore. It's hard to ignore. And if you hear thumping going up on stairs, I don't know if we let elephants in the house. I don't know if there's giraffes up there, but apparently we're hosting the gymnastics up there. So if you hear something like that, I do apologize. But anyways, that'll do it for the weekend recap portion of the show. I really enjoyed having Chicagoland back on the schedule. Hopefully it stays here. I know there's a lot of discussion in the industry about, will we be bringing back the Grant Park Street Race? Will we be leaving Chicagoland? Or can we do both? There's a possibility out there where both can be on the schedule in some way, shape, or form, which I am all for that. I am all for the idea of that, because I agree with Kennedy. Going to that market, you definitely have, I'm not saying Chicago's the biggest motorsports, area in the world, so far from it, but people have come out in droves for it. We've had good attendance for the Chicago Street Race. We just had a sellout crowd at Chicagoland. It shows that these fans do indeed care, which I love to see. So, yeah, overall, really, really fun weekend. Speaking of back to TV networks, we recently got a article from Adam Stern of Sports Business Journal, and it says that Prime Video would like to broadcast more NASCAR Cup Series races, but that's unlikely anytime soon with the racing circuit's current split set through the 2031 season. That is also, of course, according to NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell. Donald also says, we got contractual obligations, obviously, but what I can say, I don't think I'm giving away any trade secrets, is if you talk to Prime, they wish they would have bought more, said O'Donnell. If you talk to Turner, they said they would have bought more. It's a good thing. That's a great thing for us. Honestly, I am all in favor of the idea of Amazon Prime, or even TNT, if their broadcast quality continues to increase, getting more races. I think that would be amazing for the sport, because obviously Prime Video broadcasts 5 NASCAR Cup Series races a year according to their current broadcast deal. They stream the Coke 600. They stream both of these networks. They both stream a crown jewel. Prime gets the Coke 600 and TNT gets the Brickyard 400. So it works out for both parties. I am all in favor of it. Even if people still to this day, which I don't get, are still very, very reluctant on Prime Video being more on the schedule. Like, their quality and how they present themselves on the broadcasts is something that I've not seen in a long time out of anybody that's done broadcasting in races. Like, we have to acknowledge that this is, like, them being here is amazing. And obviously nothing's going to change throughout this deal, at least after 2031, which is when, we have to start renegotiating for the TV deal. But I like where Prime's head's at. I really like their mentality when it comes to that. So if we could somehow get more races in the future, in the not so distant future, if we have to bend the contract a little bit or readjust it or something like that, all the power to them. But Prime and TNT wish they had bought more NASCAR races. And when networks are saying something like that, when networks are alluding to that, saying something like that, the positivity in that moment, it just feels endless, which you love to see. Now let's get into the podcast points standings, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! It's been a long time since we had last done the podcast points. So after Chicagoland, Adam still maintains a lead. He picked Kyle Larson to win at Chicagoland. Did not have a great day. Larson had a spin in stage 2 that basically really ended his day. Still finished the race, so he is awarded with 1 point. So now Adam sits at 118 points. I had the best week out of every single driver, every single person in the podcast. I had Denny Hamlin winning. He came home third, so that's 10 points for me. So now I sit at 107. So finally broke the 100-point mark. We love to see that. And then Emma had an okay night. She gets 5 points. She picked Ryan Blaney to win. Blaney came home with a top 10 finish, finished 7th. She gets 5 points. She sits still at last with 96 points. So we're all about to hit the 100-point mark, and Emma could very well hit that mark after this weekend. And who knows? We could have a big jumble going into this weekend. But yeah, so Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We had a wild spring race. Of course, Tyler Reddick and stole the show with a missing right front fender, which that was the second race. That was the second win of his three-peat. But the summer race, summer race under the lights in early to mid-July. There's just, I don't know what hits the atmosphere. It's always something. It is always something that just hits that atmosphere, and the race just turns into must-watch television. And honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. I would not want it any other way. I don't know if Toyota will continue their dominance this race. Of course, that's hard to say because, one, they literally won here in the spring earlier this year. You had Reddick and Chase Briscoe, who were the top 2 finishers of that race. But I don't know. It's just like anything can happen in this race. Karst Hocevar was in the mix in this race. Shane Van Gisbergen had a top 10 finish here in the spring. You never know what you're going to get in this race. I feel like that's something that we have to keep in mind. It could be very easy to say, "Oh, Toyota's going to win," and they very well might. But yeah. Um. Yeah. So we have a little bit of day of history. So today's episode releases on July 9th, 2026. But I think it's time we take a trip back into the time machine. Approximately 10 years ago, July 9th, 2016, the very first NASCAR race that I've ever been to, the 2016 Quaker State 400 at Kentucky Speedway. It was the first race after the repave/reconfiguration of the track, which little did I know at the time that my 10 going on 11-year-old self was, I didn't know a lot of people hated it at the time. I was just happy to be there. And you're happy when you go to your first race. It's something that you've been wanting to experience for a very, very long time. And bam, you finally get the chance to, and you don't take that for granted. And I didn't at the time. And even though Kentucky Speedway did not really produce the greatest racing, I hold that track very, very close in my heart because it was the first racetrack that I stepped foot in. It should have been Mid-Ohio in 2014 with the Nationwide Series, but I digress. I would eventually go to Mid-Ohio at some point or another in my life, so check that one off the list. But I love taking time to talk about this because this race holds a lot of memory for me. It was a late race battle between Brad Keselowski and Carl Edwards. It was the only time that I got to see Tony Stewart race in person. It was the only time that I got to see Greg Biffle race in person. Of course, it was the first race that I saw Kyle Busch race in person. So yeah, so there's a lot of, for me at least, especially with current events now, there's a lot of value with that race to me. So, and anytime when I go back to watch rewatch a broadcast of that race, I always try to look for myself in the stands, even though it's virtually impossible to do so. So, wanted to take some time to kind of go back in history a little bit. And I love hearing people's stories of when their first races were because, it's always nice to hear. Of course, I was a NASCAR fan way before that first race that I went to, but still, that will always be a memory that I'll hold with me for the rest of my life. Rapidly moving on to the weekend, ladies and gentlemen, taking a look at the weekend schedule for both Atlanta and Lime Rock Park. The Craftsman Truck Series will be at Lime Rock Park this weekend for some road course racing action, and then we'll have Under the Lights racing from Atlanta Motor Speedway on Saturday night, and then the Cup race Sunday night. So let's take a look at the weekend schedule. Beginning at 9 a.m. on Saturday, July 11th, we have practice for the Craftsman Truck Series on FS1 with qualifying following at 10:05 a.m. and then the race beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, once again on FS1. For qualifying for the NASCAR Rally Auto Parts Series, it will also begin on Saturday at 11 a.m. on the CW with the race following at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on CW Sports. Cup Series will also have their qualifying on Saturday, July 11th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on True TV, with the Cup race following Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TNT Sports. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is your broadcast weekend schedule to get all your racing action, all your racing fix. And let's get into weekend picks, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I am the only one of the show who has their picks ready. The other members, you will see their picks as the weekend goes along. So there you go. For my Lime Rock Park pick, I am going to go with the man who is dominating street courses so far in the series, but has yet to actually get a road course win. I think that experience will play a big role for him. Give me the 34 truck of Lane Riggs, baby. Let's do it. I believe Lane Riggs will be... Yeah, so it will not be another Corey Heim dominating race like it was last year, where I believe Heim led 99 out of 100 laps. So, which, by the way, I don't think the race needed to be 100 laps, but that's just me. But, yeah, 34 truck of Lane Riggs. Going to be hard to beat. Now, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series makes their second and final trip of the year to Atlanta Motor Speedway. Now, I hate going for the obvious picks because sometimes you like to have a little fun. You like to have a little bit of a fun pick, every now and then. But it's really, really beginning to hard to ignore the guy who obviously won the season opener at Daytona, and his only other win came at a street course. But any time when he touches that Atlanta, Georgia air, and to be fair, he is a native of Georgia, he just excels. He just excels. So, not the most fun pick in the world, but it's the most obvious one. Give me the 21 car of Austin Hill to win on Saturday. Now, for the main event on Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, at Atlanta Motor Speedway, 267 laps, 400 miles under the lights. Who is going to win? Now, I'm going to say right here, right now, I'm not picking a Toyota driver. I will be picking a Chevrolet driver to win. But it's not who you're thinking of. It's not the man who has won here numerous times and won this race last year. And it's not the man who could have won this race earlier the year if he wasn't such a public nuisance to every other driver around him. But I'm going with a man who has been sneaking good as of late. And he's coming off a top 5 finish at Chicagoland. He finished inside the top 5 here last year. I believe he did finish runner-up. He was in the top 5 regardless. But this is a guy that I don't pick often. I'm going to go with the 48 car of Alex Bowman because, if the 48 avoids the chaos, if him and Blake Harris finally get where they need to go and they put themselves in the right position, like they nearly did last year, except it was the 9 car winning, then, Hendrick Motorsports, they could be coming away with the win. So why not take Bowman? Give me the 48 of Alex Bowman to win. But with that being said, that'll do it for Race Picks, ladies and gentlemen, and that'll do it for this week's episode of Revved Up. Thank you all so much for listening in to this week's episode. I know, once again, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I apologize for the 2-week delay. Had a lot going on in my life, and but now we're back. Tune in next week as we preview North Wilkesboro Speedway and their first points paying race for the first time since 1996. So it'll be fun to talk about that, but we will enjoy Atlanta and Lime Rock this weekend. As always, I am your host, Carter Leonard, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.